Hey there, I'm Julie, and this is the Married to Addiction podcast. If you're here, then you're probably what I call my secret sister. We're in a situation we never asked to be in and fighting a battle we never wanted to fight. We're faith-filled women who are married to an alcoholic, and it affects every inch of our lives. If that sounds like you, then this is a safe place for you to land. Married to Addiction is a faith-based podcast where I help you find the tools and strength you need to navigate your husband's addiction without losing yourself in the process. So please subscribe and tune in as often as you can, because your husband's recovery is important, but so is yours. Some big news for you today. I have a brand new, powerful, free coaching series that was taken directly from the Get Off of the Addiction Roller Coaster event that I had earlier this year. I have rebuilt it as a free coaching series that you can sign up for, and it will help you, just like the title says, get off of the addiction roller coaster. Even if you think your husband will never get sober, there is still so much you can do to reduce the chaos in your life and stop feeling so helpless. So if you feel like your life is out of control and you aren't sure what to do next, and every single day just feels like an emotional roller coaster, then this is the absolute best place for you to start. So, in this coaching series, we talk about some traps that you may have fallen into, how you can access and position the power that you already have, which you may not even realize you have, and how to use the right tools in your situation. After going through this free coaching series, you'll know how to reduce the friction and conflict in your home. You'll be able to provide a more peaceful environment for yourself and your family. You'll know exactly what to do when tense or stressful moments arise, and you will experience a refreshed spirit and renewed empowerment. Now, this coaching series is all delivered to you via email, and you just log into a private platform to access each day's content. I think you're going to get so much out of this, and it is absolutely free. To sign up today, just head to marriedtoaddiction.com/roller coaster. Hope you decide to join me there. The Married to Addiction podcast is brought to you by the Secret Sister Circle. The Secret Sister Circle private group coaching program was designed to take the Christian wife of an alcoholic from hurting to healing. If your life feels unmanageable because of your husband's drinking, if you feel consumed by his addiction and you're constantly trying to figure out how to stop it, if you have let everything else in your life fall by the wayside, including yourself, then the SSC was created for you. I actually built the SSC around what I needed back when my husband was deep in addiction. I clearly remember sitting on the floor of my closet one day, just bawling and frantically searching Google for help. I couldn't really find what I needed, which was help, detailed help, step-by-step help designed for a Christian wife, because it was also super important to me to have that element built in because of my faith. And I wanted to be guided by that, from that angle. So if that sounds like you, we would love to have you join us in the Secret Sister Circle. You can get the help you need without feeling exposed. It's a private online program with a private online community of other wives just like you. And you are taken step by step through every possible scenario that you could encounter as the wife of an alcoholic. We would love to have you join us. You can get started beginning today and start moving towards healing. Just go to www.marriedtoaddiction.com and look for the tab that says Secret Sister Circle. We'd love to have you join us. Hello, and welcome into episode 98 of the Married to Addiction podcast. Today's episode's called Other Types of Addiction. So I wanted to talk about this because obviously we focus on mostly alcoholism here on this podcast, because that's the type of addiction that I walked through personally with my husband. But I often have people write to me and say, my husband is addicted to XYZ. Can your resources and programs still help me? So I wanted you all to know that the answer is absolutely yes. We're going to talk more about that in a minute, but first I want to talk about some of the other types of addiction that you may run into with your husband other than alcoholism. So firstly, addictions do overlap sometimes because one will sometimes impact another. For example, a husband who is drinking is sometimes more likely to take part in other unscrupulous or risky behaviors. So maybe when he's drinking, it fuels a gambling addiction or a sex addiction. Or maybe he's more likely to also partake in other substances once he starts drinking. So, unfortunately, one type of addiction can actually fuel a second or even a third or fourth. Not always, but sometimes. So, some of us actually end up dealing with a husband who has multiple addictions. So, let's talk a little bit more about those. So, of course, the most closely aligned to alcoholism would probably be drug addiction. And although it is closely aligned in some ways, it is often more insidious and leads to negative impacts much more quickly than alcoholism does, typically. But that is all the more reason, if your husband is dealing with an actual drug addiction, to be sure that you are gathering tools and strategies to help and protect yourself and your kids if you have them right now. Because things like boundaries, untying, and all that can be critically important for you pretty much from the very beginning with a drug addiction. So another type of addiction that is all too common, unfortunately, is porn addiction or sex addiction. This one is especially hurtful on another level because it infiltrates the most intimate part of your marriage. So for women who are dealing with this with their husband, particularly things like boundaries are going to be hugely important for you because you must have boundaries to protect yourself physically and emotionally. Another type of addiction that I hear about a lot is gambling. So again, this behavior can be spurred by drinking. You know, somebody might be able to refrain from that until they start drinking, and then that just goes out the window. So this particular addiction is really complicated because it has an additional layer of having the potential for quick financial ruin, which is obviously a really big concern. So women in this particular situation need to learn how to set things up to protect themselves. So they also need boundaries in the area of finances, for example. So while there are some common components to each of these types of addiction, there are also specific aspects to each of them to consider as well, as I talked about. So today I want to give you 3 recommendations, regardless of what type of addiction your husband is struggling with. The first one will probably come as no surprise when I tell you that you need to get some help. You need to get plugged into some type of help, direction, and support for you ASAP. Because no matter what type of addiction is in your home, you still need to learn how to care for yourself through this. Now, of course, if you'd like to consider my Secret Sister Circle, which is my private group coaching program, we would love to welcome you in. But there are lots of other types of support organizations, even for specifically some of the other things that we've talked about, that can help you as well. So in my particular situation with my group coaching, yes, I do cite alcohol specifically in my content, but pretty much all of it is going to be relevant for you regardless of what type of addiction your husband is being affected by. So just take a note of that. Secondly, I want to give you the tip to get some legal and or financial advice if you feel like you need it now, or you may need it in the future in your situation. So this is definitely a better safe than sorry recommendation. And lastly, I really want to make sure that if you have children, that you are also getting support for your kids. So little kids, teenagers, or even grown kids whose relationship is being with their dad is being affected because of addiction, they need support. They know more than you think they do, even the little ones, and they are affected most likely more than you think they are being affected. And in my opinion, I feel like it is 100% better to have a loving conversation with them around addiction, regardless of what type it is. And of course, you want to make it age appropriate. You want to get guidance on how to have those conversations, because obviously we don't just want to go into it having it be a bashing session about their dad. But there are ways to discuss this with children, small children, teenagers, grown children, and that is much better to do than to let them draw their own conclusions, which oftentimes, especially with little kids and even sometimes with teenagers and grown kids, those conclusions will often include that they are at fault in some way. So you really need to make sure that you're getting support for them too. So I hope that these 3 tips have been helpful for you. Addiction affects us in a multitude of ways, but the biggest takeaway that I want you to get from this episode is that it is vitally important that you accept and address that you need help and that it is affecting you in a multitude of ways before it ends up taking you down with it. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Quick question for you before I let you go today. Have you been to the Married to Addiction website? If you haven't, I would love if you would go pay it a visit. It's just marriedtoaddiction.com. And over there, you can see just a lot of different information about my podcast. There is a blog on there. There's some free resources for you. And there's also a few ways that you can actually get some help if you need a little more help and direction and support as you travel this difficult path with your addicted husband. So if you haven't yet, please go visit marriedtoaddiction.com. Thanks so much.